なおはよう。この配信は VTuber 用語を皆さんに紹介します。なんかね。Have you ever wanted to get deeper into VTuber culture, and you look at all of the terminology that you have to learn, and you try and ask questions about it, but nobody really answers you, and nobody really tells you what the hell they're talking about, so you just kind of sit there like, what? What's an Oshi mark? What's a Zatsudan? Don't worry, I got you. This won't really be a comprehensive list of terms, but I've collected quite a few of them that I think that people tend to struggle with, or people may need to know when they go into watching VTuber debuts or other such things. Debut is technically one of the terms. So let's start really simple. What is an ENVtuber? An ENVtuber just means English VTuber. Usually there's a difference between JPVTuber and ENVtuber. For those people who use the hashtag ENVtuber tag on Twitter, you're doing it correctly, but if you use hashtag VTuberEN, you're doing it incorrectly because VTuberEN is a different thing. That's supposed to be for Japanese VTubers translated into English, so like keep that in mind. Next is a combination of three things. They're the first few things that you see from a VTuber when they first start out. Reveals, debuts, and the debut voice. So, first and foremost, reveals are usually things on Twitter or on YouTube or stuff like that that are trying to showcase parts of the model. A lot of the time this is something that's done on Twitter where somebody will post like, if you do this many retweets, then you get to see my feet, and then so on and so forth. They go up usually from the bottom of the model to the top of the model, and then the last thing you see is the face. Next, a debut is usually just the first time that you see a VTuber stream, or the first time that a VTuber is officially using their character with like all of the bits and bobs about who they are as a person. They'll usually tell you about their favorite games, they'll tell you about their likes and dislikes, they'll talk to you about the things that they want to do in content. It's kind of a rundown of what their content might be like before you even see any of the other streams from them. So it's kind of like a, hey, if you want to get to know me before you watch my streams, watch this stream first. Then there's the debut voice. The debut voice is something that comes up a lot in corporate settings. A lot of VTuber agencies have people coming in and they may not be used to big crowds. So a lot of the time when these people start out, they're incredibly nervous and they're usually trying to play up more of a character. They're trying to, it's kind of like a YouTuber voice, if you know what a YouTuber voice is. It's that same kind of customer service-y sort of like, oh my god, hi, hey guys, welcome to my debut, oh I'm so happy to see you, sort of thing. And they try and keep it up for the first little bit after their debut, but usually it fades off pretty quickly. That's why people call it the debut voice. As you get more comfortable with your streaming, and as you get more comfortable with your community, you start to get rid of it. It kind of fades away. As you start getting into a debut, you're gonna hear a lot of terms really rapid fire, so let's just go over some of them as quickly as I can. Lore. This is somebody's, you know, their backstory, their lore. A lot of the times VTubers are trying to play somewhat of a character, or they're trying to be something that's kind of cool. They're trying to be like a virus VTuber, they're a goddess VTuber, they're, you know, there's a lot of different things that they might be trying to be, and this is just them trying to explain that to you, explain their little story, kind of be a little more of an anime character for you. PV. This is usually a promotional video, so this is something that you'll see usually a bit ahead of the debut, but usually a PV is something that's like a trailer. It kind of showcases maybe a little bit of their voice. It might have some of their model moving around and stuff like that. Generation. A generation in a VTuber company is usually where you hear that term, is basically just the batch of VTubers that are debuting all together in one group. So usually VTubers in talent agencies will debut in different groups of about 3 to 5, somewhere around there, unless you're Nexus and you're debuting 16 next, oh my god. So a generation is just the talent group that they are debuting alongside. Next, talent, liver, and senpai, they all kind of just refer to streamers. So a talent is usually a streamer that is under a certain organization. A liver, that's usually a Niji-Sanji specific term for talent. And then senpai is just what they will call the VTubers that came before them in earlier generations. They're higher-ups, they're, I guess they're elders in the company. PNGtuber, 2D model, and 3D model are things that you might hear somewhere around a debut of some kind. A PNGtuber is just an image. It's usually like a picture that will maybe open and close its mouth, but it doesn't really move around that much. A 2D model is what you see right here. Just a model that moves around on the screen a little bit, but like doesn't have a huge range of motion and is usually just made from a paint shop file that is cut into different layers and deformed to make move. And then a 3D model, which I think you kind of know, things like, you know, Pixar animation, things like your video games usually these days. A lot of video games are 3D nowadays. Stuff like that. Next is VRoid Studio and VTube Studio, which are two entirely different things. VRoid Studio is a 3D program that you can get for free on Steam that can help you create your own 3D digital avatar for free. You can draw the hair on. It's actually a pretty cool program. I really do suggest it if you're trying to get into VTubing and you don't have a lot of money, and if your PC can handle 3D because 3D is kind of heavy. And VTube Studio is a program that is used for Live2d tracking. So they're two entirely different spaces. One is 3D, one is 2D. VTube Studio is usually the program that people are using to make their 2D avatars move like me. I'm actually using VTube Studio right now. A 2D model usually comes from a mama and a papa, which the mama would be the artist, the person that creates all of the artwork for it and makes all of the different pieces ready to rig. And then the papa is the one that uses a program called Live2d Cubism to create the tracking, to make it actually move, and to make sure that all of the physics and stuff look good. The physics, of course, are things like the hair movements, the boob bouncing, the body movements, stuff like that. Now I'm going to speedrun a couple of different types of streamer and categorizations that VTubers tend to use. First and foremost, Fleshtuber. This one's kind of just a joke. It's based on, you know, 2D VTuber, 3D VTuber, PNGtuber, all of that stuff. It's a joke for Facecam streamers, which is another term that we use to talk about normal streamers, or people who do show their face when they're doing live content. Next, there's Vtweeters. This is usually a term that people use kind of derogatorily to talk about VTubers who spend a lot of their time on Twitter and talk on their posts a lot about different drama that's going on without really doing a lot of streaming. There's also Vsingers, Vartists, and etc., which are just categorizations of VTuber that do those different things. They sing, they do art, etc. There are also, of course, your Seiso or Lewdtubers, which are basically just two different halves of the same coin. Seiso VTubers are supposed to be very pure and innocent and sweet, and they don't really do anything that is sexual in any way. And then there's obviously the Lewdtubers, which do things that are more sexually based. Sometimes they'll have an OnlyFans and stuff like that. Somewhere in between the Seiso and Lewdtubers, I think, are the GFE and BFE streamers. GFE is girlfriend experience, and BFE is, of course, boyfriend experience. These are streamers that cater towards people trying to make them feel like they have more of a sort of parasocial relationship with the streamer. They try to cater an audience that treats them more like they are, you know, their virtual girlfriend or their virtual boyfriend, and they'll do a lot of ASMR content, they'll do a lot of affirmations, they'll do a lot of things that are more based towards saying like they love you and stuff like that. Since VTubing tends to follow a lot of anime culture, you'll also hear a lot of things such as tsundere, yandere, himedere. You might hear dojinko, you might hear something like kamidere, you may hear something about idoru, and etc. There are a lot of anime terms that I'm not even gonna go over, but here's like a quick little chart of some of them. So those are a bunch of different terms related to streamers, but there are also some terms related to streams themselves. First and foremost, Zatsudan. A Zatsudan is a stream that is kind of just like a just chatting stream. It's usually just somebody that sits around on camera and talks to people, talks about their day, talks about what's going on in their lives. Maybe they'll have a topic put up on the screen so that you have something to like work with when you're going into the stream and trying to talk to the streamer. It's just a just chatting stream. The next two are kind of opposites in a way. One is unarchived streams and one is Guerrilla streams. Unarchived streams usually refer to karaoke most of the time. They are streams that are unlisted after the stream time. So they're things that you have to go and you have to see live. And if you don't see them when they're live, then there will not usually be a VOD afterwards. There might be some clips floating around, but nothing official from the streamer. And then a Guerrilla stream is a stream that is just random. It just happens suddenly. It's like guerrilla warfare, right? It's usually something that I don't see a lot from Facecam streamers because I think a lot of Facecam streamers just kind of toss streams up whenever they feel like it, but a lot of VTubers tend to have very strict schedules for their weeks. So a Guerrilla stream is kind of rare from a VTuber. Another quick rapid fire round. A Supa is just a super chat on YouTube. It's usually the equivalent of giving bits and then getting your message displayed. An Akasupa is a red super chat, and that's $100 or more. A Marshmallow is a account that is made on a site called Marshmallow, and it's basically just a question and answer site. It's a place where fans can go and put in different questions for the VTuber to answer. And then comes the things that VTubing borrows from idol culture. First and foremost, Oshi marks. Oshi marks are these little markings that you can usually put on your handle on something like YouTube, on Twitter, on Discord, basically anywhere. That is just an emoji symbol that is supposed to show your support towards your favorite VTuber or your favorite idol in general. Your Oshi is your favorite VTuber or your favorite idol. It's the one that you want to support the most. It's the one that you're there for all of their streams. It's the one that you love and care about, and you want to be there for them. And then your Kami Oshi is like your god Oshi. That's like, oh my god, this is the most beautiful, amazing person I've ever seen in my entire life, and I would do literally anything for them. They are god in my eyes. They are my idol. A penlight is just a little light stick that you bring to a concert, and usually it's that thing that you see people waving back and forth at something like an idol concert in Japan, but they've also brought them over into the States or into Canada or so on to go to different VTuber conventions. TSKR is something that you see a lot in streams from VTubers. I think it's kind of still part of idol culture. It basically just means tasukaru, and it's basically just trying to say, oh my god, oh, that was so hot. A big one that you might have heard about already are, of course, graduations. Graduations are something that nobody really wants to get into, but basically graduations were coined from idol culture. It is the final stream that somebody will do as a VTuber. It's their goodbye. It's basically their retirement. And why, do you ask, do they call it a graduation of all things when that's supposed to be like a big celebration thing? Well, a graduation in Japan in idol culture was supposed to be basically an idol gets to a certain age and they no longer can continue performing as an idol. They'll graduate and they'll move on to different parts of the entertainment industry. It was first created as something to be a celebration for those idols. It was supposed to have like celebratory merch. It was supposed to have usually like a graduation song. It was a big event that was kind of like a coming of age ceremony for an idol. Like, oh, you're old enough now, you can go on into the rest of the entertainment world. You don't have to continue just being an idol. You can go be like an actress, you can go be a model, you can go do other things now, and it's supposed to be a celebration of their life as an idol. Unfortunately, for VTubers, it's kind of changed a lot. So for VTubers, graduation now just means a retirement. A lot of the time, people also tend to use graduation when talking about termination, and termination is usually, you know, the cancellation of a contract without any kind of mutual agreement from the streamer and the company. And it's usually kind of just a sad event. Nobody wants to hear about a graduation anymore. If you say the word graduation anywhere on like a VTuber space, people are probably gonna assume something bad and not that you're like graduating from school. The last couple of terms that I'll tell you about aren't necessarily good terms. They're kind of just descriptive terms for certain types of people or certain types of situations. So first is the PL, or the roommate. PL, it stands for past life, and roommates is kind of just a secondary way to say it. It usually just stands for whoever the VTuber was before they were their current VTuber persona. A unicorn is usually like a big super fan for VTubers, one that usually spends a lot of money, but one that is very, very, very heavily into idol culture and will usually push them to really heavily fit inside of the idol culture box. And then there's tourists, and tourists is usually just a derogatory term to speak about people who have entered into the community and people don't think want to learn a lot about it, so they're just kind of passing through and they will leave eventually. Kind of pushed past those last few, I don't necessarily like those ones, but yeah, so that is a basic rundown of a lot of freaking terms for VTubing, so I hope it helps. I hope that you're not too overwhelmed, because that's a freaking lot. There's probably some that I missed. If there are any that I missed, or if you want to correct any of the definitions that I gave down below, please do, because I am not an expert on everything. I'm just, you know, I've been here for like 4 years, but I learn as I go too, just the same as everybody else does, so yeah. I hope this helped you guys out, though. Bye-bye!